Sarah, would you like to begin? Sarah would
Sure. Yeah.
explain us her study about seeing the whole child, systems thinking for academic and social emotional growth. That's also Peter Sanger mentioned about it a lot. We would like to hear you more, and maybe you can a little bit explain yourself for the introduction. You have
Sure,
10
that
minutes.
sounds good. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes, but before that, I forgot. You have 10 minutes. Each presenter has 10 minutes, and then we will have a questions.
Okay.
Yes, we
And
see your screen now.
that sounds good. Okay. So I'm a little bit nervous. I consider myself a novice in this still, but I'm curious. Okay, so I want to thank you for being with me today. I want to acknowledge I am a magnet coordinator at Borton Elementary Magnet School, which is a project-based learning and systems thinking school. And I've been there about 4 years, so I'm still fairly new to systems thinking. Um, so I want to acknowledge that everything today it's nothing novel. So sorry. But it's things that have been passed on down to me that I have been working in collaboration with others that we have been just I've really had the pleasure of. And I want to do a special shout out to Carol Kroll, who is a former magnet coordinator at Borton, who did a lot of this work, and Kathy Laus, a former PBL resource teacher, and then also Sherry Marlin at the Water Center. So I feel like I've got to give due respect to all of those areas. So Peter Senge said it really well. He talked about how education, especially in the United States, is very compartmentalized, when in actuality, social emotional learning and academic learning are of the same system. And I think that when I don't believe in having like a separate program, but really when you use systems thinking, you like kind of leverage it to help make those connections. And then also, I'm going to say use literature to help them help, and then have the system thinking help them connect themselves to the text. There's so much potential there to really reinforce both. So I'm going to talk about that. I want to say that even before we start in the classroom with students, that we are looking at how to support all students social, emotionally, and academically. So this is like pre-service days beforehand. We have the driving question, how can we use systems thinking to intentionally design a classroom where all students thrive? And using systems thinking habits, we're considering how to do that. So if we know that system structure generates this behavior, we're looking at what are the physical structures of the classroom, what are the policies and practices of the classroom that are going to help create trust and safety through consistency, that are going to help establish a community and a sense of belonging and ownership to really want to fall into those practices. So we're really thinking about this from a systems thinking perspective even before students enter the classroom. In the beginning of the year, we use a lot of systems thinking games from the System Thinking Playbook and others that we've created to build teamwork and to build and form relationships and start to foster that systems thinking habits. We also do like check-ins using a behavior over time graph that help create that sense of belonging. So here you can see students are looking at their levels of excitement in being in the classroom on the first, second, third, fourth day. I showed both of these because you notice that like the kids they get to use their star to have their own voice, but then we're looking at patterns and trends, not individuals. The bottom one, I think one of the things I really like it is that the color is specific to the level, and then they look at, they correlate the response and then put it to the level that they think it best fits. Well, the other one, what I really like about it is that it talks about notices, like why they think that maybe there was a little bit more dip on Wednesday, maybe the kids were more tired. And then we also do a lot. He talked about the caring classroom, so I won't spend a lot of time with this because he already talked about how teachers are using stock flows to create healthy classrooms. I really like doing it to the book, How Full is a Bucket? Is Your Bucket? Because it already has reinforcing loops in it. In fact, I'm going to say a quote because I really like it. It says, "The strange thing was for every drop, and I realized I didn't put my plus signs, that he helped put into someone else's bucket, he felt another drop into his own bucket." So that's a reinforcing loop right there, and there's several others. And I just wanted to show, it was suggested to us that we show our successes and our failed attempts. So here's a failed attempt. I created a graphic organizer for students to think about, after doing this as a whole class, what kind of reinforcing loop they want to work on. And they really liked the bucket. In fact, in this stock flow that I did, I didn't name the bucket initially. We just did all the converters that dropped in and then all the ones that dipped out. And then I said, okay, so what's the bucket? And they said that it's about self-worth, good feeling, emotional health. Well, what I did is in the reinforcing loop, I thought the bucket would be really cute. If you've worked with elementary, and I should have known, this is I'm not a rookie in this. All the kids, instead of drawing the action that, dropped into their bucket or dipped from their bucket, they just were drawing levels of water because it was too, they're in their mind, they're thinking about it that kind of literally, but in conversation, they could still talk about the actions that dropped and dripped. So I changed it to just the more my friends, make me feel happy, the more that I use kind words, the more I use kind words, my friends feel happy, that kind of reinforcing loop. With older kids, I really like using post-it notes. Actually, I can use it with younger too, but post-it notes are just a really great way for share equity of voice. And then they're regrouping. Um, and then they're regrouping. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit faster. Um, from there, we like to use a lot of behavior over time graphs to show in literature. And so here's a couple of examples of BOTGs done to SEL books. And you can see sometimes we are reordering it with pictures from the book that we've copied. Other times it's students drawing it on post-it notes and then adding it. What I like to do with the juice box bully is I like to have them take a look, like several groups do like one character and then another character to compare how those lines intersect. We've also done it in the same graph. And then from there, using the BOTG to look at their own self. So in this, there was a couple different projects that have done that. So this was using perseverance as a tool. And so they read Jabari Tries and they did a behavior to over time graph in Jabari Tries. And then they looked at a level in their life where they were learning to do something and how hard it was and what was their journey. And so they did a behavior over time graph of their journey of learning to ride a bicycle or learning how to swim. And they talked about it. And then they applied that to learning something new in school. Like when learning is hard, what do we need to do? Let's go back to our behavior over time graph. The other one that they did is we used the behavior over time graph to write their own stories about character strong words like honesty, which really helps students to realize like both of these are looking at like growth mindsets and recognizing that emotions that we learn from our experience that we're not expecting children to be perfect. And then this bottom one I thought was really interesting. They were looking at creating a happy, healthy environment, and they noticed that after lunch, all the kids were really unhappy, like that there may have been something that happened during lunch that was not all the kids, but that there may have been some unresolved feelings. And so they put in a strategy, which they decided was going to be the complementary circle. And then they looked at how did that change the feeling in the classroom. We've also used behavior over time graph in intervention, and I'll show that in a little bit. Using the ladder of inference. So I love the ladder of inference. I know you guys are familiar with it, so I won't talk about it in length, but one thing that I really enjoyed recently is not just looking at like two characters in a book and how they perceive the same situation differently, but actually looking at the same character in a book and looking at like a before and after an event, how their ladder of inference changed based on their experience. I talked a little bit about intervention, so I wanted to highlight this. And I'm sorry I don't have this documented in student work, but I'm just going to show you the form. So I worked with our multi-tiered system support coordinator, MTSS. She works on academic and behavioral growth. And we originally had a check and check out system. Check and check out is for students that need a little extra support, either behaviorally or academically. And at first it was like a daily, like I need reminders, I made good choices. And then we thought, well, what if we do it as a behavior over time graph? When you do it as a behavior over time graph and you look at it in terms of like events throughout the day, so like I had my morning meeting, we did our literacy a block, then we went into a special, we went to the art class, then we went to lunch. We were able to find like the patterns and trends of where in the day the kid was struggling. The kid was able to identify, oh, look, at every special, I'm having a difficult time controlling my body. Maybe transitions are difficult for me. And what can we do with that? So I believe that I might be out of time already, so I'm not going to go into this. Can I say one more thing about
How many slides do you have more?
not many? If I can just say one
Okay,
more thing about
just one more minute
perfect.
quickly.
If I can say one more thing about interventions, the other thing that we've done is going back to this with like the reinforcing loop. In restorative practices, we talk with students about that cycle and how you can break that cycle. And we help them to identify that, like, especially when they're doing the ping pong of like, he said, she said, well, he did this, she did this. Looking at that reinforcing cycle and having them talk about how their hurtful feelings created the hurtful actions that then created the hurtful feelings, and this avalanched. And at some point, we have to break the cycle. Having them identify the things that are going to break the cycle has been really effective in our restorative practices. So I'll end it on that. And I thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you.
Thank you, Sarah. So thank
Sometimes
you
it's hard.
for your practical guidance for us, also for all of us. Thank you so much. We will take your question after the second presentation. Okay, now we will Phil Ramsey. Are you here, Phil?
He has a video, Meltem.
The video. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you show the video?
Due to time zone difference.
Yes. Okay. Just
I can show it if you want.
would it be
It's
better?
ready. Okay.
Okay. Phil will talk about the Billibonk and Frank, the teaching system thinking to kids. As you know that he's a writer for the books. He will share his experiences for us.
Hi there, I'm Phil Ramsey. I teach at Massey University in New Zealand, and I'm the author of the Billibonk and Frankl series of books about systems thinking. I started writing these books when my children were young, some years ago now. I was teaching a graduate course on organizational learning that incorporated systems thinking, and I wondered, how can I teach my children about systems principles? How can I introduce them to the idea of some of the systems archetypes that I saw as being so useful? It occurred to me that stories are really compatible with systems thinking because the context in which things happen are so important in a story. Stories are a traditional way of conveying wisdom, and particularly of sharing complex ideas. And stories are fun. I find them fun to create, they're fun to share, and they're fun to listen to. Let me share my screen and tell you a little bit about the books. So this is the Billibonk and Frankl series of books. So Billibonk is an elephant, Frankl is a mouse, and these are the two main characters. When anything strange happens in the jungle that they live in, well, they act as systems investigators. As a story progresses, they uncover the causal connections that are at work. And also how they work together develops. The nature of their collaboration changes over the series of books. They learn to work together as they go along, and they start training others. Now, in most cases where there is something unusual happening in the jungle, Billibonk and Frankl, they might be tempted to take shortcuts, but then they realize they have to work harder to find out what really is going on, what are all the variables involved, and they have to find fundamental solutions to the problems that they've encountered. I've tried to incorporate challenges that parallel what children may recognize in their own lives or things that are happening in the world around them. So again, I'll share my screen. In the first book, Billibonk and the Thorn Patch, there's a conflict between groups, and you get the reader gets to see how conflict can escalate. As I'm recording this, there's an escalating conflict going on between the US and Canada. It's the sort of thing that is a natural parallel, something that happens regularly. There's always some sort of conflict escalating in the world around. The second book, Billibonk and the Bugs, an ecosystem is out of balance, and that leads to a pest infestation that affects everybody in the jungle. Starts by affecting the elephants, and when an elephant is uncomfortable, well, everybody knows about it. The Floods of Nith explores issues to do with land use and how actions that we take can result in things like flooding. And the fourth book of the series, The Dark Jungle, we see how bullying within a community can disrupt the community and have effects on everybody roundabout, more than just the community itself. Now, as a teacher, there will typically be something happening in the world around you that you can relate to one of or more of these themes. Plus, because these are in story form, your class can work on literacy skills as they learn about scientific aspects of systems or about systems generally. So it's an integrative approach because stories are involved. Together with the Systems Dynamic Society, we've incorporated some resources to help with teaching. A feature of the books are regular summaries of principles that are involved, key systems principles. And so as you go through the book, you'll encounter pages where a principle like this one is summarized, incorporating illustrations from the story. Now, on the Systems Dynamic website at systemdynamics.org, you can find the summaries in a poster form that can be downloaded. So this is what you find in amongst the resources for teaching children, and you'll see that as well as a description of the book, you can download the posters. On the website, you'll also find short videos about each book. In these videos, I've made 2 for each book. I discuss some of the systems dynamics in the story and use causal loop diagrams to explain what's happening and how causal loop diagrams can be used to reflect what's happening in the plot of the stories. There's also a video for each book about the qualities the characters are having to display in order to be able to act effectively as systems investigators. Based on recommendations from experienced system educators, we've held back from over-helping for teachers. You won't find any full lesson plans because it's really better for teachers to create your own lesson plans based on your level of expertise, plus what else you might be doing in the classroom. And of course, the local context and things that you see happening around. So, happening around that relate to the various dynamics that you see happening in the stories. So please enjoy the stories and make use of the resources. You can find the books on the Systems Dynamics website or on Amazon if you want to buy them in a Kindle form, Kindle-friendly form. And you can find the videos as well on YouTube. Enjoy.
Thank you, Phil. Sara, you told us that you are excited, but I think I'm more than you. I forget the video. Thank you. We can have the questions for Sara, or maybe the comments also for Phil. That's your floor to share, to ask questions. Yes, Amy, please. I see your hand.
Yes, Sara, I have a question for you. Does Borton, like I was speaking about earlier, where you could collect research, does Borton collect research on the effectiveness of systems thinking at all? In like a way that could be published?
Yeah, so
or shared?
I want to say it was in 2001 to 2005, Water Center did a research, and Borton was one of the schools that was involved with that research. And they showed that like it does help with engagement and making thinking visible and literacy, but we have not continued on in that research. And I think part of the problem is that there's been changing leadership and changing staff. So no, we are not continuing to do that. I think what we're trying to do instead is just even documenting like the good work that we're doing and trying to, teaching. I think what's another kind of hard part for research right now is that in teaching right now, you've got a trend of people here on the side of place to retire and then new teachers, and a lot of the middle are leaving. And we're certainly seeing that in Arizona. And so we're constantly having to do a lot of professional development in systems thinking to get teachers comfortable. And he talked about like all the instructional pressures right now, even with being a magnet school, some of our teachers feel that pressure. And so I would say that we go in ebbs and flows, but we do need to do a better job about researching the impact. I want like in a less like not just an informal way. We do it as formative assessments, but they're more like qualitative.
Yeah. And do you have access to what the Water Center, like the procedure the Water Center used in order to collect the data for the research? And is that
I know.
So you don't have to recent the wheel.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know that if we have access to it. I know we know like the results of it, but I'd have to look into that.
Amy, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, way back in the day, this is a long, long time ago with the Water Center, when I was in Portland, we were doing action research. And so we really used the structure and the format of action research. And we had teachers with kind of support to be able to kind of define their action research project and collect the data on that and then report on it. And then we'd actually report out in a conference. So, that could be a nice way of where it's not so deep, in higher ed research, but it's really on what you're actually doing in the classroom and being able to gather data on your own kiddos.
Yeah, and action research is so powerful.
Yeah.
Kind of seems overwhelming to like say, oh, I have to collect all this data, but I'm thinking maybe if we like just to start small and pick one thing just to like get it started, like just maybe in August, pick one thing, almost like a pilot action research, just to kind of just to do it. And then if it continues, it continues. That's how I have to do things. I just have to like, just get it started. But I think that would be it's a good idea, since Senge said that research is so important. I feel like it has to be researched in order to be brought to a wider scale.
Yeah, and I think I learned recently that Borton, really the systems thinking as a magnet, happened from a really grassroots approach. And so starting that research with like your teachers that are more comfortable with it and like really excited about the work, and then having them see how the action research like also informs their practice and makes it stronger, and like could really then it can kind of catch like wildfire a little bit more. So I think the one step at a time is a really good.
And I think about that, Amy, too, like how to really use systems thinking in stories and literature. And, I love the use of behavior over time graphs and really understanding what's happening with a particular character, their level of happiness. And, I think there could be some, like, if you kind of center on one aspect and maybe a couple of different tools, like that was shared here, and as well as what others have done to, really then be able to quantify, like our students able to articulate more and explain what's changing in the story and what, and kind of thinking about it from that lens. But I think it would be exciting to kind of find those teachers that Sara's saying that are kind of ready to benefit and they're excited. And I think there are around not only the US, but around the world who might be wanting to jump into that.
Yeah, and you touched on a really key thing. It's like using, looking at the behavior over time graph way to document that discussion and having them really tell the line of that story and how that is showing like their greater comprehension would be really strong.
Thank you so much for your comments and the answers. I think we have to finalize this session. The second round will begin at 10:30, at 6:30. Just one more minute that will to get a fresh. Thank you, Sara and Phil.
If you guys want to do a little breakout session later on, we can brainstorm what to brainstorm something.
Yeah, there was a networking area, Amy. That's a good that we would like to hear more of you. And there was a network session. Did you see in the program between that we will have more time if possible? A networking lunch that is 12 in New York time and 5 in Munich time. Did you see in the program that we will all welcome there? That we will share this in the same room.